Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we are so excited for y'all to join us for this presentation, and I hope y'all enjoyed our special lunch keynote speaker and some of the presentations from this morning. I feel like we've had just a great slate of really great information and knowledge sharing this morning. So I am very excited to introduce y'all to Grace Jackson. She is our graduate teaching assistant in the English department here at LSU. She also serves as a tutor with us here in the Academic Center for Student Athletes. So she is near and dear to us, and she is going to do a presentation today on connection checks, making the most of the questions you ask. So I will hand it over to Grace.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you all for being here. I imagine that your minds are full to bursting with everything you've been learning today, so thank you for giving me a chance to cram just a little bit more in there. I'm going to share my screen here in just a moment, but I'd like to know a little bit about you. If you could just type your role in the chat. So if you're a teacher, I'd love to know that. If you're administrator, likewise. If you guys could go for that as I'm sharing my screen. All right. All right, so it looks like we have a lot of folks with coordinating powers in here. Amazing. Also, some folks who do learning specialist work and tutoring. Terrific. Thank you so much. It's just good to know where everybody's coming from. Let's get this in slideshow mode. How's that? Can you see it? Great. All right. So Sarah gave you the Cliff Notes version on my bio here. I'm a PhD student in the English department at LSU and a graduate teaching assistant. And my goal in life is to specialize in Renaissance literature. So they gave me the glorious task this semester of teaching the Shakespeare survey course here at LSU. And the inspiration for this presentation came from my work building that course. And just a warning here on the front end, this will be a bit of a baptism by Shakespeare. I can't help myself. The course material that I'm teaching this semester is Shakespeare, so all of my examples in this presentation are going to be Shakespeare related. But before you jump ship, let me assure you it's going to be the perfect preparation for you as we head into Shakespeare's birthday week next week. You're going to know things that your colleagues don't, and I think the core principles of the presentation should be applicable to any course content, be it physics or history or math. So our learning specialists in the room should find something to take away. So as Sarah very kindly previewed for you, the focus of my session is connection checks or connection check questions. This is a type of question that I've developed and deployed energetically in my classroom this semester. And I'd love to give you a little background on how I developed this type of question before diving into examples and application. So in my Shakespeare course, each class session begins with a 5-question quiz that covers both the previous lecture and the reading that students should have completed before showing up for class. And because my quizzes are so short, just 5 questions, I want to make each question probe the student's understanding most deeply and promote their understanding as powerfully as possible. Let's see here. My advanced slide button isn't working for me, so I'm going to see if I can find another way. Let's see here. There we go. Just clicking on the screen did the trick. Okay. So as I was saying, while lingering over my title slide, my objective when I'm writing a quiz question is to probe the student's understanding of the course material as deeply as I can, and also promote the development of their understanding of the course material right there in the context of answering that simple question. What do I mean by probing understanding? Well, I want to ensure that students have more than a surface level understanding of the course material. In my case, this would be a Shakespeare play. So as I'm constructing a question, something that I'm keeping in mind is that I want it to be a question that students are likely to be unable to answer if they've only engaged in surface level study, such as reading a plot summary of a given play or watching a film of the play. In order to answer a question on one of my quizzes, they should have read the play, and it's my objective to make that imperative through the types of questions that I ask. As far as promoting understanding goes, what I mean by that is ensuring that in answering a given quiz question, students are developing their existing understanding of the course material. In the case of my course, this would be a play. So as they're answering that question, I want to get them thinking about the play in a new way, or appreciating some feature of the play that they had previously not appreciated. So over winter break, I found myself thinking long and hard about course design, and as I was designing the course, I kept asking myself, how can I make each component of the course not just good, not just better, but best? Hence my perhaps obsessive deliberation over the types of quiz questions I ask. Some grab bag question types that come to mind when thinking about questions to ask students are comprehension questions and retention questions. Comprehension questions in the context of my Shakespeare course could be something simple such as, do you understand why Hamlet is reluctant to trust the ghost? Just for the fun of it, does anyone know the answer to this question? Not what you were expecting to have to answer today, but on the off chance that someone does know, drop it in the chat. And I just realized I don't have my timepiece handy, so I'm going to reach back here for it. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's okay, Darius. You will by the end of this presentation. So the answer to this question is, the ghost of Hamlet's father has come to him and revealed to him that his father was murdered by his uncle. Fair enough, Dr. Bodak. You have the weekend for that. And Hamlet is reluctant to trust the ghost's report about this murder because he's afraid that the ghost is a devil come to tempt him into murdering his uncle unjustifiably. So if I pose this question to my students, sure, I'm scratching the surface of their comprehension, but that comprehension itself might be rather thin. If a student has come to class having just read a plot summary or just watched the film version of Hamlet, they'll probably get this question right. And with my insistence on asking the best questions. I want to probe my students' understanding more deeply so that they're motivated to come to class having read the play itself. When it comes to retention questions, these are questions that test what material students have retained in their memory, and can spit back on in the context of a quiz. A retention question related to my course content might be one such as this: which character in Hamlet can't see the ghost? I'll give you the answer here just to be nice. So this is Gertrude, Hamlet's mother. She can't see the ghost of her dead husband, or at least she claims that she can't see it. If I ask this question, or a question of this type, to my students, no doubt most of them will be able to answer this, but the learning will stop right there after they've answered the question. The question doesn't get them developing their understanding of the play as a whole. It simply tests retention of a basic fact from the play. It doesn't ask them to consider the play itself in a new light, or to appreciate some feature of the play that they had previously not considered. Enter connection check questions. A connection check question is one that I like to define as a question that requires students to identify connections across course material. That's a nice long definition, but rest assured I'll unpack it for you here in just a moment. While I was in the thick of things designing my Shakespeare course this winter break, fortuitously, my mom came along with a very urgent need. She needed some technical assistance with her New York Times Games app. And while I was, as always, unable to solve her technical problems, I did glean something from the experience. As I was helping her, I kept rubbing up against this game, Connections, and it sparked in me some pedagogical insight. Connections is a game that requires the player to discover connections between four groups of 4 words. And I'm gonna leave it to YouTube to give you the full intro. So here we have a 2.5-minute video on connections for anyone who isn't familiar with the game.
So the New York Times is testing a new game. It's called Connections. It's a pretty fun game. I'm going to teach you how to play it, and let's play today's Connections. So for how to play it is very, very simple. It's given you 16 words, and you have to find 4 groups, each with 4 items that share something in common with that group. So with these 16 words, you're looking for 4 words that have something in common 4 times. And the way they've laid out the puzzle, they've made it tricky where you don't necessarily know exactly what the grouping is, and you're only allowed to make 4 mistakes or you lose. Now the groupings are usually really specific, not really general. That's the trick of it. And also some of the groupings are easier than others. Make sense? If it doesn't matter. Let's play. So you look at this and you go, okay, well, let's see. We have Portugal, we have Denmark, we've got Poland, and we've got Greece. They could all be countries, although there is Holland there. So since you need 4 and there's 5, you don't want to be wrong. What could the grouping be? I don't know. Looking at it, actually, here's another thing I think. Cruise, as in Tom Cruise, Tom Holland, Tom Waits, and Tom Petty. I think that's the first one. So Tom Petty, Tom Waits, Tom Holland, Tom Cruise. Submit. Great, we got it. And we got the blue level one. There's 4 different levels, 4 different colors. Now that we got that Holland out of the way, I think it helps a lot to go Portugal, Denmark, Poland, and Greece are 4 countries. So let's submit that. Did we get those? Great. Now we got the Toms, we got the European countries. What would these remaining 8 have to do with each other. How about to parrot somebody is the same thing as to mimic somebody, which is the same thing as an echo, and maybe to copy. So let's put all of them together. I think that's pretty straightforward. Good. And we got synonyms for imitate. And that leaves the last four, which is livid, mild, mix, and dill. I don't know. What are these, chips or pickle flavors? Words spelled with Roman numerals. Ooh, that was a hard one. Anyway.
I agree. I don't know about you. I don't know that I would have gotten any of those without a little bit of help. But what's the point of, exposing us all to this game? It is not to, send you home with a new addiction, I promise. Rather, it's to think about what pedagogical mechanism we can glean from a game as fun as Connections. In the case of my connection check questions, here's what I'm gleaning. So the game requires players to identify connections across 16 random words. My connection check questions require students to identify connections across course material. This past, I guess it was yesterday, Thursday, was my students' final quiz of the semester. So I took the opportunity to take an informal poll on how they felt about the fact that it was their last quiz, and one student gave me exactly what I was hoping for. I used to hate them, he said, but I've started to love them. So that's one student testimonial for the types of questions that I've subjected my students to give you an opportunity to learn what connection check questions are and what they're all about and whether or not you want to use them with your students. I'm going to ask you to play student for just a moment here.
That's a fun game.
Let's click outside the video. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so you didn't know you were signing up to be a student today in my Shakespeare class, but it's all preparation for Shakespeare's birthday week, I assure you. We're going to read two short passages from Hamlet together, and just to make sure you are oriented and know where you are in the play, I'll give you a little bit of background info. So as I mentioned earlier, Hamlet's uncle Claudius killed Hamlet's father. Hamlet's father's ghost came to Hamlet and told him about this dreadful act and asked him to revenge this murder. Hamlet is worried that his father's ghost may be a devil, tempting him to an unjustified act of murder in return. And Hamlet, being the clever fellow that he is, decides to test the ghost's account of the murder by staging a similar murder in front of his uncle Claudius. If Claudius reacts with guilt or strong emotion, Hamlet believes that he'll have justification for believing that Claudius committed the murder and justification for revenging his father's murder by murdering Claudius. The play that Hamlet stages is typically referred to as the play within the play because it's a play within the greater play titled Hamlet. And before and after this play within the play, Hamlet has conversations with friends. This first conversation is with his friend Horatio, and on the next slide we'll look at a second conversation with a different friend. All right, so if you can buckle up and sit through a little bit of early modern English, I promise it will be worth it. So here's Hamlet speaking to his friend Horatio. For thou hast been as one in suffering all that suffers nothing. A man that fortune's buffets and rewards hast taken with equal thanks. And blessed are those whose blood and judgment are so well commingled that they are not a pipe for fortune's finger to sound what stop she please. Give me that man that is not passion's slave, and I will wear him in my heart's core, aye, in my heart of heart, as I do thee. All right, so let that passage settle in, and we're going to move directly on to the conversation Hamlet has with a different friend after the play within the play. Here, Hamlet is speaking to his friend Guildenstern, again, speaking to a friend. So, a little bit of context for this conversation. Hamlet has just held out toward Guildenstern a recorder, the musical instrument that we all learned in grade school. Hamlet's going to refer to this recorder as a pipe, so just be aware of that. So Hamlet asks Guildenstern, "Will you play upon this pipe?" And Guildenstern replies, "My lord, I cannot." Hamlet repeats his request, "I pray you." Guildenstern replies, "Believe me, I cannot." Hamlet, more urgently, "I do beseech you." Guildenstern, "I know no touch of it, my lord." Hamlet, "It is as easy as lying. Govern these ventages with your fingers and thumb. Give it breath with your mouth, and it will discourse most eloquent music. Look you, these are the stops. Stops meaning the holes that you put your fingers on to change the note that's being sounded." Guildenstern comes back at Hamlet, "But these cannot I command to any utterance of harmony. I have not the skill." Hamlet replies, "Why, look you now, how unworthy a thing you make of me. You would play upon me. You would seem to know my stops. You would pluck out the heart of my mystery. You would sound me from my lowest note to the top of my compass. And there is much music, excellent voice in this little organ, yet cannot you make it speak. Do you think I am easier to be played on than a pipe?" All right, so let that passage settle in. And we're going to run through some questions together. Let's start with a basic comprehension check. 2 questions here. I'd love to see your responses in the chat. What does Hamlet praise Horatio for? And what does Hamlet criticize Guildenstern for? See if you can keep your answers to both questions to just one word. I think you should be able to do it. Marissa, I appreciate the bravery. Oh, Rosie, I love it. Darius, is that the question that's aggravating or Hamlet? Oh, fair enough, fair enough. He definitely does not try to be easy to understand, that's for sure. Oh, Allison, I like your answer. That's very elegant. Loyalty and disloyalty. Okay, great. I think I'm seeing some themes here. Marissa says friendship versus betrayal. Rosie says pureness versus deceit. Allison says loyalty versus disloyalty. I think if I were to add anything, I would say that Hamlet praises Horatio for his his stoicism. Horatio is someone who stays firm regardless of how the winds of fortune are blowing. If he's having good fortune or bad fortune, it doesn't matter. He stays firm. With Guildenstern, I think I'll go with Rosie's reply there, deceit. Guildenstern is a friend who he's trying to manage Hamlet rather than befriend him. Okay. Quick survey question. Do you feel that these comprehension questions helped you understand the passages more deeply? Sarah says yes. Dr. B says yes. All right, good to hear. Let's move on to some retention check questions. Here we have, does the Hamlet-Horatio conversation take place before or after the play within the play? What about the Hamlet-Guildenstern conversation? Just type it in the chat. Very good. Before and after. Excellent. Okay, quick survey question. Do you feel that these questions, these retention questions, helped you understand the passages more deeply? Just drop it in the chat. Not as much, says Marissa. Maybe, says Dr. B. Okay, great. Yeah, I would say the retention questions were definitely more shallow than the comprehension question. Comprehension questions, plural, sorry. All right, so here's a connection check question, such as one my students might encounter on a quiz. What metaphor do Hamlet's conversations with Horatio and Guildenstern have in common? Now these students, because they sit in an English class every Tuesday and Thursday, know what a metaphor is, but I can give you a brief definition. A metaphor is a figure of speech in which one thing is compared to or described as another. So what metaphor do Hamlet's conversations with Horatio and Guildenstern have in common? And Marissa got it. In both conversations, Hamlet mentions a pipe, which is his word for recorder. Very good, Sarah. Excellent. So in Hamlet's conversation with Horatio, he praises Horatio for not being like a pipe that fortune can play. And in his conversation with Guildenstern, he criticizes Guildenstern for treating him like someone who can be played upon as easily as a pipe can be played upon. Very good. So this connection check question asks students to identify an element that's common to two separate conversations, two separate passages in the play. Quick survey question. Do you feel that this connection check question helped you understand the passages more deeply? And it looks like we have an enthusiastic volley of yeses. Now here's where you're different than my students. If I'm trying to get them to say one thing, they run the opposite direction. But you're saying exactly what I was hoping you would say. The connection check question is designed to help you understand the passages more deeply and also begin to develop your understanding of and appreciation of the artistry of the play. After my students take a quiz, I always devote 5 to 10 minutes to reviewing the quiz with them. And after we review a question and its correct answer, we talk about ways in which that answer enhances our appreciation of the play as a whole. So in the context of the pipe metaphor, we'd have a little discussion about why a pipe? Why a musical instrument? Why does Hamlet reach for this metaphor when talking to a loyal friend and a disloyal friend? And we'd begin expanding the students' understanding of the play and their appreciation for its artistry right there in the context of a simple quiz. All right. So I think I'm going to skip this question since I'm running just a bit behind my timeline. And I'm just going to make sure that you're aware that there are two different types of connection questions that you can compose for your own students. In the first type, what you want to do is identify the element that's common to a group of things. In the case of the connection check question we looked at earlier, the question would be, what metaphor do Hamlet's conversations with Horatio and Guildenstern have in common? But we could rephrase the same question to behave like a number 2 question here, in which we ask students to identify the things who share a common element. Rephrased to follow this template, the question would read, in what 2 conversations does Hamlet use the metaphor of a pipe? You can also squeeze 4 types of connection check questions out of these templates by giving negative instances of question types 1 and 2. But that didn't work well with these examples, so I didn't give you example questions for that. All right. Now I know that we're not all teachers, so this might be this exercise might be a little slanted toward teachers, but hopefully everybody can participate in some way, shape, or form. I want you to apply the presentation principles regarding comprehension questions, retention questions, and connection questions by creating 3 questions that relate to the course material or the material that you teach or perhaps you train employees in if you're operating in less of a classroom situation. So create a comprehension check question, a retention check question, a connection check question, and drop them in the chat. Yay, Rosie! Sarah, I don't know if you're working on your question still, but your message reads just for tutor training : so maybe your questions didn't make it into the comment. Marissa, woohoo! Oh, Sarah, now we've got your full post. Terrific. Yay, Marissa, I love your third question there. That's great. Oh, Dr. B, giving us some chemistry to sharpen our teeth on. At least I hope that's chemistry. If not, you just discovered that I don't know my chemistry. Terrific. Glad I got it right. Yay, this is great. I love all seeing this array of questions, and the question number 3, connection check question type, tends to just leap off of the screen as especially powerful. So if you don't mind me giving you a little homework, it's a reflex I've developed, sorry. I'd love you to try out the 3 questions that you just created, or 3 similar ones, and then email me how it goes. Tell me how your students or your employees respond, and I'll file that away as I continue honing my own pedagogical know-how. All right, so we have 10 minutes left. I'd love to know if you have any questions or any comments, anything you'd like to share. If you have, like me, obsessed over the types of questions that you ask your students or your employees, I'd love to hear what you've found, what works, what doesn't. I don't know if you're able to turn on your mic. Please do if you can, but if not, just drop it in the chat. And if nobody has questions or comments, we can also wrap up. But Dr. B has a comment. Okay, Shakespeare would have made much more sense if it had been taught this way, rather than read these parts and be prepared to discuss next class. Aw, well, thank you, Dr. B. Thank you, Darius. Thank you, Wilbur. Oh, great question from Sarah. Do you apply this in your tutoring sessions in the same way as in your class? I hope so. The tutoring sessions tend to be a little bit more of a blur because I don't have the luxury of planning out every minute ahead of time. But if, yeah, I will definitely aim to do so. That's a terrific suggestion. All right, and I think we will wrap up on the early side, give you all a little bit more time to stretch your legs before your next session. Thanks, Leander. It was great having you. Thank you all so much for your kind attention, and you have my email address, so get in touch if you'd like to keep talking all things teaching. Thank you, Marissa. I'm so glad you were able to come.
And I just want to remind everyone to please fill out the survey for the session, and we definitely appreciate y'all joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much, Grace.
Thanks, Sarah. Take care.